Okay, so tonight we're going to focus on domain and range, and we're going to learn it in a flash like Flash. So, domain we talked a little bit about. It is the x values of a relation, and a relation is points of a graph. For every x, there's a y. So if we look over here, we have some coordinates. We have 2 and -10, 2 and +10, 5, and so on. Okay, so they took these coordinates and they put it in an x and y table. So again, they just transferred them from here to here. Okay, and then they went ahead and they said, well, we have a 2 and they have two 5s, but we can bring one 5 over and one 7 over, and this is called mapping. And so basically it's just a different way of representing your coordinates. So we have 2 and -10, so they have a line that goes from 2 and -10 and a line from 2 and 10 that makes these 2 points here. And then for the 5, they have 5 and they have a line to, it's supposed to be 25 and -25. I messed up there. And then 7 to the -7 or -35, -5. So it was just a more concise way of writing it, compact way. But really what we want to notice is your domain is 2, 5, and 7. So even though there's 2 of them in each one, when we're listing the domain, we would just say the domain of these points are 2, 5, 7. And then the range is the opposite. It's the y values. So again, they have their same points, same chart, and then the same map. But our range is the y values here, and all our y values happen to be different. So if I had to list the range, I would list -35, -15, -10, +10, +15, +35. But again, that 15 should be 25 because they messed up there. Okay? So if we look at this example, now we have a coordinate plane with the points here. And it says, what are the x values of every point? Drag the domain here. So if I look over here, you can say that this value right here is 0, 2 is that point. So for this relation, which is everything that's graphed here, we have a 0. So in our domain, we're going to put 0. For here, the point is -1, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and +4. So again, for my domain, I would put in -1. Here we have -3 and +2. So -3 is part of the domain. Here we have -4 and -2 is its coordinates. So -4 is part of the domain. And then the last one here is 2 and -4. So 2 is part of the domain. Now I probably should have done that one first. So oops, so that they were in order from greatest to least. But anyway, it's still the domain. So my domain for this relation here, 0, -1, -2, -4, and 2. Although I should have wrote the 2 first. Okay. So now let's look at the range. The range we're going to do is the same idea. Okay. So we're just, again, are these all the same points? I think they're all the same points. So here, this was 0, 2. So actually, I should start from where I wanted to in the first place. Let's see. The highest range is going to be here. So range is the y, right? So this point here is -1, 4. So 4 is the range. Okay. And if we look at these 2 points, this is 0, 2, and this is -3, 2. So the y value is 2 here and 2 here. So I can just put 2 down once. Okay? And then here, this is -4, -2. -2 is the y, so -2 goes for the range. And then here we have 2, -4, so -4 is the y. Right? So these are my ranges, 4, 2, -2, and -4. And again, because these both had a y value of 2, I only had to write it once. Okay, so that's your range. So it gets a little trickier when you're trying to find the range of graphs. Okay, so here we have, as we've learned, this is called a parabola or a quadratic equation. And then we're looking at the range of this graph. And you can see these arrows mean the graph goes forever towards what we call positive infinity, or in the up direction. okay? But if you look at right here, this is called the minimum point. And the minimum point is -2, -4. And it's called the minimum because it's the bottom point. There's no part of the graph here. So when we're talking about range, we're talking about the y value. So -4 is the lowest y value. And then if you go up here, you know, the y value keeps increasing. We have -2, 0, and all these little points, because this is a line and not points, it counts, these are all points, right? So my graph starts at -4 as the y is the lowest, and then all the y's are increasing up to infinity here, okay? So when I'm writing this range, I can just say y is greater than or equal to -4. Okay, so here's my -4. All the y, this is the smallest y, and all the other y's just keep going greater into infinity. So that's how we write the range here. Now this is a little bit difficult, and we will work on this for a while. But writing the domain and range of graphs, and it'll take a few days. But just try to focus and see if you can kind of understand it a little bit. All right, so this is another graph. We've talked about these. This is the absolute value graph, okay? So again, now this one asks for the domain and the range, okay? So let's look at the range. Here is the top of the graph, right? And it is a -1 and 4, okay? So if you look at it, the highest y we have is 4, and then it decreases forever. So we're going to have, now let's see, it's a point, so I think they have that wrong here. Lots of errors in this. So this is a point here. So this should actually be y is less than or equal to 4, because 4 is the highest and all the y's are going to be decreasing because there is no part of the graph up here, okay? So then when we get to the domain now, remember the domain is the x's. So if I look at if I look at it compared to the x-axis, all these points are going on forever towards the right, and all these points are going on forever towards the left. So all my x values are going to be all real numbers. R stands for real numbers. So that means the points on this graph is going to use every x in this direction and this direction. So my answer to this question is my range is y is less than or equal to 4. And then x is all real numbers. Goes on forever in each direction, okay? All right, let's look at this one. This one asks for domain and range, and I think range is the easier one to find, because if you think about it, this is the top of it, which is at y is 4, and this is the bottom of it, which is y is -4. So all my points are between here and here on the range, because that's the y values. So if I look over here, I'm going to say y is less than or equal to 4, and then this, you read it from right to left. This is greater than or equal to -4. So it's between 4 and -4. Okay, so that's going to be my range. So that's right. Now my domain is the x values, right? And my x values go from here to here. So the graph covers all the x's from here to here. So in this case, I would say my x values are between 1 and 4. So I would say x is less than or equal to 1, but greater than or equal to 4. So my domain should be here. Okay, and again, we're gonna work on this a few days in class, so don't get too upset if you don't have it quite right away. But I always find that it helps if I draw these lines, because y is range, so I like to draw the highest y and the lowest y, and then x is domain, so the smallest x and the largest x, and then it's between those points. So hopefully we'll learn this in a flash. See you in the morning.